Okay. Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for joining our session today. And to start with, as we briefly mentioned in my last session, that we have requested Mr. Roberto Come from FUNAI to make a short presentation on the project portfolio on mini hydro of FUNAI. So, Mr. Roberto, can you please share your screen and start your presentation, please? Carlos, can you say a few words to sort of introduce Mr. Roberto?
Yeah, okay. Well, I would say that probably everyone has seen the name of Roberto on the list. From FUNAI, the idea is that this morning, again, FUNAI will contribute in this course by providing us information related to the activities, particularly the portfolio of the projects that they have, and in this case, in the area of mini grids. So I just, as Divas has said, just want to welcome Roberto Come, who has been attending all the sessions. So he is ready. He knows what we want to hear from him. Thank you very much, Roberto.
Thank you. My name is Roberto Come from FUNAI. I'm technician in Mini Hydro division. So I'll do my presentation in Portuguese. I think I'll be more comfortable.
Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Roberto, that'll be fine. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Vou fazer a apresentação de carteira de projetos de mini hídricas que o FUNAI tem levado a cabo nesses últimos anos. Vou iniciar por fazer uma pequena contextualização, dizer que o primeiro instrumento que foi levado a cabo para a materialização da carteira de projetos do FUNAI foi o Atlas de Energias Renováveis, que foi concluído em 2014. Esse instrumento compreende as componentes solar, eólico, geotérmico, hídrico, biomassa e marítimo. Então, o Atlas de Energias Renováveis tinha como objetivo identificar os locais para o desenvolvimento de projetos de energia renovável e quantificar o seu potencial existente. O que acontecia é que havia conhecimento de que Moçambique tem um enorme potencial de energia renovável, mas não havia uma ideia de localização dos locais potenciais para esses locais, e também não havia uma ideia da quantidade de energia que se pode gerar nesses mesmos locais. Esse mesmo estudo de Atlas de Energias Renováveis incluiu avaliação técnica e econômica dos projetos. Portanto, aqui fez uma avaliação preliminar dos aspectos técnicos e econômicos destes mesmos projetos. Em que consistiu a atividade do Atlas de Energias Renováveis? As atividades levadas a cabo para o desenvolvimento da Atlas de Energias Renováveis consistiu na recolha e tratamento de dados hidrológicos. Moçambique tem uma rede hidrológica de medição de precipitação caudal. Então, todos os dados foram recolhidos pelo consultor e fez-se uma modelação de bacias hidrográficas, ou seja, todos os rios do país foram associados às respectivas bacias hidrográficas. Fez-se a elaboração do mapa do escoamento do território através de instrumentos como o GIS e outras plataformas. Então, e também contou-se com a pesquisa dos estudos antigos que já haviam sido desenvolvidos. E, no fim, fez-se o mapeamento dos locais potenciais, incluindo a sua simulação e orçamentação. Dando seguimento a esse processo, em 2017 foi introduzido a carteira de projetos de energias renováveis focados apenas para os recursos solares e hídricos. Viu-se que logo a priori os recursos hídricos e solares eram os mais abundantes e eram facilmente exploráveis do ponto de vista técnico. Então, daí que se desenvolveu essa carteira de projetos de mini hídrica focada apenas aos recursos solar e hídrico. O que traz de novo a carteira de projetos? A carteira de projetos é um instrumento mais dinâmico, permite a sua atualização à medida que os projetos vão sendo implementados e tem um alinhamento com a estratégia que se pretende de construir mini-redes em locais com elevada densidade populacional e com índices de desenvolvimento, de perspectivas de desenvolvimento, e também a construção de sistemas individuais em locais onde a população é dispersa. Temos muitos locais neste país com uma grande dispersão da população. Então, esses locais seria ideal a adoção de uma tecnologia relacionada com sistemas individuais. Essencialmente, a carteira de projetos de energias renováveis visa direcionar os investimentos, quer sejam públicos, quer sejam privados, até mesmo para os parceiros, no sentido de se alcançar a cobertura universal de eletrificação até o ano 2030. Em relação aos critérios adotados para o desenvolvimento desta carteira de projetos, teve-se em conta, primeiro, o assentamento populacional e a sua dispersão. Falava aqui anteriormente de casos em que a população é densamente, os locais de densamento povoados, os locais com dispersão da população. Então, um dos critérios foi a questão dos assentamentos populacionais, a disponibilidade de recursos hídricos e energéticos no local. Aqui fez uma análise de todos os locais, a sua proximidade com a rede nacional de energia ou não, e a partir daqui priorizou-se os locais cuja rede nacional de energia elétrica passa a mais de 30 quilômetros. Um dos outros critérios que foi analisado foi a atividade econômicas e sociais, assim como as infraestruturas existentes. Então, esses dois itens justificam o investimento em mini-redes nos locais selecionados. Com base no protocolo de projetos, foi categorizar projetos de no projeto de mini hídrica, dizer que essa categorização permitiu a divisão, a categorização de projetos de mini hídricas em carteira em função do estágio. Então, assim teremos os projetos em fase de reconhecimento de locais, que vamos ver aqui nas tabelas a seguir. Temos projetos em fase de estudo de viabilidade, temos projetos em fase de obras e também vou fazer uma partilha de alguns projetos já concluídos que estão em funcionamento. Iniciando pelos projetos na fase de reconhecimento, temos aqui nessas tabelas 23 locais nas províncias de Niassa, na província de Nampula, na província de Tete, na província de Manica. Então, esses 23 locais são os locais em que se fez os levantamentos no local. A informação que tínhamos do Atlas era baseado em mapas. Esses locais que já foram ter reconhecimentos efetuados, o FUNAI, através dos seus técnicos, fez os levantamentos de base e já há condições criadas para o desenvolvimento de estudos e projetos. Para além desses locais, existe um número de cerca de 300 locais que ainda não se fez o reconhecimento e penso que nos próximos anos vai continuar a ser o trabalho de efetuar esses reconhecimentos. Neste momento, temos 23 locais potenciais para avançar-se com os estudos. Aqui estão aqui as características dos locais, em termos de localização por província, o nome do local, o número, no atlas de energias renováveis, a altitude, latitude, essa é a localização exata, potência estimada, a cota máxima e a cota mínima, assim como a queda estimada. Essas são as características básicas dos locais em que se efetuou os levantamentos. Temos projetos com estudos de viabilidade realizados. Temos o caso de Mavone, na província de Manica, no distrito do mesmo nome. Esse projeto foi desenvolvido sobre o rio Nhamuquarara. Espera-se uma potência prevista de cerca de 900 kW. Aproximadamente os investimentos previstos, segundo o estudo de viabilidade, é de cerca de 7 milhões e 500 mil dólares. Este projeto está em carteira, o estudo de viabilidade já finalizado, conforme eu me referia, e aguarda-se a disponibilidade de fundos para o investimento. Temos o projeto da mina hídrica de Nentulo. Nentulo localiza-se no distrito de Grue, no posto administrativo não tenho aqui o nome, posto administrativo no distrito de Grue, na província da Zambésia. A potência prevista é de cerca de 10 megawatts e está prevista a sua implementação sobre o rio do Tiwa. O custo total estimado de investimento é de cerca de 25 milhões de dólares. Aguarda-se a disponibilidade de fundos para o investimento. Temos projetos em obras. Temos aqui um projeto que está sendo desenvolvido na província da Zambésia, no posto administrativo de Majau, distrito de Milange, uma potência de cerca de 1,9 megawatts sobre o rio Rumo. Aí estão os principais componentes: açude e tomada d'água, câmara de casa, conduta forçada, edifício central, equipamentos de geração. O valor desta obra, que neste momento está em curso, é de cerca de 877 milhões de meticais. O empreiteiro é Soares da Costa, fiscalização da técnica de engenheiros consultores. Essa obra iniciou no dia 14 de maio de 2019 e prevê a sua finalização, a sua execução em 24 meses. Mina hídrica do Luaíse, esta obra está sendo realizada no posto administrativo de Meponda, no distrito de Lixinga, na província de Niassa. A potência prevista é de 480 kW e está sendo construída sobre o rio Luaíse. O valor da obra é de cerca de 337 milhões de meticais. O empreiteiro Canas Otava, fiscalização, técnicas, engenheiros consultores. A data de início foi 31 de maio de 2019 e o prazo de execução é de cerca de 27 meses. Há um pormenor que me escapou aqui na mina hídrica de Berua. A mina hídrica de Berua está interrompida, está interrompida neste momento porque houve situações de litígios com o empreiteiro que levou à rescisão de contratos. Então, esses são os dados iniciais e nos próximos meses vai ser lançado de novo concurso para a construção dessa medida. Foi rescisão do contrato devido ao fraco desempenho do empreiteiro. Vou apresentar aqui, depois da carteira dos projetos, vou apresentar algumas obras em operação neste momento. Temos a mina hídrica de Majau. A mina hídrica de Majau já foi apresentada aqui no princípio da nossa formação. Localiza-se no distrito de Milange, na província da Zambésia. População cerca de 25 mil habitantes. Tem uma potência de 595 kW e foi construída sobre o Rio Vu. Essas são os principais componentes. Tem cerca de 565 ligações, mas à medida que o tempo passa, vai-se aumentando o número de ligações e a extensão da rede. Temos a mina hídrica de Sembezé. Talvez pudesse aqui mostrar. Aqui é a zona do açude, do Recuê para Majau, é a zona do açude onde se faz a captação de água. Aqui é o canal da adução, o açude está nessa zona aqui, depois tem o canal da adução. Quase todos os aproveitamentos do FUNAI são a fio d'água. São projetos ambientalmente favoráveis. São projetos ambientalmente favoráveis. E depois aqui temos o edifício da central e, por fim, temos o aspecto dos equipamentos de geração. A mina hídrica de Sembezé, os dados estão aqui à direita. Temos aqui o açude, essa zona. Temos aqui o canal da adução. E temos o edifício da central e temos também os equipamentos de geração. Essa mina hídrica encontra-se na província de Manica, distrito de Sussundenga. Por fim, temos a mina hídrica de Moa, também no distrito de Sussundenga, na província de Manica. Potência de cerca de 10 kW, 100 kW, desculpe. Tem aqui o açude, tem aqui o edifício da central e equipamento de geração. Muito obrigado pela atenção. Essa foi a minha apresentação sobre o portfólio de projetos de mini hídricas estão a ser levados a cabo pelo FUNAI. Muito obrigado.
Thank you very much, Mr. Roberto. I think I got the gist of your presentation. I may have not understood everything, but I will check later. But Carlos, can you just moderate any questions, comments from other colleagues, participants?
Yeah, thank you very much. Está aberta a sessão de perguntas e respostas. Coloquem as perguntas em português ou em inglês. Em inglês melhor, mas se não for possível em português, por favor. Sessão de perguntas e respostas.
Bom dia, tenho uma pergunta. Primeiro, agradecer pela apresentação. É possível dizer qual foi o Atlas? Por exemplo, estava à procura de ver no Atlas as construções que vocês estiveram a fazer e parece não haver assim muita ligação entre os projetos e o Atlas. Se calhar é engano meu, mas pode-me falar um pouco sobre esse aspecto. E o segundo aspecto é se podia dar os custos dos últimos projetos, só para nós termos uma ideia. Eu não vi os custos dos outros projetos quando apresentou.
Sim. Obrigado. Eu dizia na minha apresentação que há uma ligação entre o Atlas de Energia Renovável e a carteira de projetos. Na verdade, a carteira de projeto resultou do Atlas, mas o Atlas foi um documento estático, digamos que fez-se levantamentos e fez-se a simulação através de mapas, mais o trabalho de gabinete de simulação através de softwares para identificar os locais. E enquanto que o Atlas de Energias Renováveis, a carteira de projeto, já tem mais detalhes, já tem locais em que se fez os levantamentos. Porque se for a ver, por exemplo, no Atlas de Energias Renováveis, fez uma simulação em mapas. Tem locais com potencial na província de Inhambane, por exemplo. Tem locais com potencial na província de Maputo, falo de potencial hídrico. Mas depois de fazermos uma análise mais detalhada para a criação da carteira de projetos, vimos que, na verdade, esses locais não são favoráveis. No caso da província de Inhambane, no caso da província de Maputo, não são favoráveis. Então, escolheu-se algumas províncias que têm maior potencial, é o caso de Niassa, é o caso de Nampula, é o caso da Zambésia, Tete, Manica e Sofala. Tem formações montanhosas, tem estratos rochosos e tem rios com muito caudal. Enquanto que na zona sul tem mais rios, mais planos, que não favorecem a construção das medidas. Eu estou a falar exatamente da área das medidas. Então, no Atlas de Energias Renováveis, o trabalho foi mais detalhado na seleção dos locais, mas também teve em conta essa necessidade de se lançar o projeto aos investimentos, quer privados, quer de parceiros. Então, esta é que foi os grandes desenvolvimentos obtidos na carteira de projetos. Em relação aos custos de investimento, eu apresentei aqui apenas 2 projetos com estudos de viabilidade concluídos. Esses projetos apenas aguardam o financiamento para as obras. Falei de Mavonde, na província de Manica, são 900 kW, estima-se em cerca de 7 milhões e 500 mil dólares as obras. E depois tem este de Nentulo, custa cerca de 25 milhões de dólares, são cerca de 10 megawatts de potência. Em relação aos projetos em que se fez os levantamentos, infelizmente não trago os custos aqui, mas existe nos arquivos os custos estimados para essas todas as obras. Aqui não tem, mas é possível disponibilizar os custos estimados para esses. Esses são locais em que se fez os levantamentos de base, conhece-se os locais, mas também existem outros locais, cerca de 300 locais, que ainda não se fez os levantamentos. Não sei se me fez perceber a tua questão sobre Queimaus. Bom dia.
Roberto, obrigado. Eu queria ter alguns dados, mas depois posso falar consigo pessoalmente, porque nós também somos professores aí na UEM e às vezes queremos envolver os estudantes nesse tipo de projetos, nesse tipo de atividade e gostaríamos que eles tivessem também alguma sensibilidade, não é?
Sim.
Então, sempre queremos falar um pouco sobre este assunto. Quando a apresentação da segunda-feira, acho que foi na quarta-feira, foi muito interessante, porque deu algumas ideias para o papel do Estado, o papel do setor privado, tem todos um certo papel. Então, nós temos que focalizar um pouco sobre este assunto na discussão dos estudos de viabilidade e os custos, de facto, é uma coisa muito importante, porque, por exemplo, há certos projetos que a gente sabe que, epá, isto aqui, se o governo não puser o dinheiro a custo zero, não é? Porque alguns não dá para recuperar esse dinheiro, não é? E tem que haver esta componente. Eu estou a ver que as renováveis, principalmente aqui em Moçambique, onde os custos por quilowatt-hora são muito elevados comparados com outros países como a Ásia, o papel do governo, das instituições financeiras, é muito importante.
Sim, sim. O que está a dizer é verdade. De facto, o custo de investimento, se calhar, nas mini-hídricas pode ser um pouco mais elevado, mas leva a essa vantagem. Os custos de operação são relativamente mais reduzidos. Eu penso que... Sim.
Bom dia.
Bom dia.
Obrigado, Roberto, pela apresentação.
Colega Estâncio, pode falar perto do microfone, por favor?
Sim. Não sei se está a me ouvir perfeitamente.
Não, tem que levantar mais a voz ou aproximar mais o micro. Estamos a ouvir muito mal.
Bom dia. Não sei se já está a me ouvir.
Mais ou menos, mas ok.
Carlos, sugere que escreva no chat, talvez é mais fácil.
Sugerir que... agora podemos, sim.
Sim, eu estava a agradecer pela apresentação. Estava atentamente a olhar a carteira de projeto e não vi lá a mini hídrica de Ronde. Acredito que é um projeto que o FUNAI em tempos desenvolveu. Agora, não sei em que estado está a situação do mini hídrica de Ronde, em Manica. E a outra situação é a mini hídrica de Beru. Falou aqui que houve um litígio, então, e que vai voltar a se lançar o concurso.
Sim.
A minha questão é, o custo de investimento dessa mini hídrica continua o mesmo? Ou vai ter que se refazer?
Sim.
Obrigado.
Obrigado pelas perguntas. Dizer que a iniciativa de construção das mini-hídricas veio já há tempos atrás. Começou com a GIZ e provavelmente antes mesmo do FUNAI começar a implementar os projetos das mini-hídricas na província de Manica. Foram construídas muitas mini-hídricas lá, são cerca de 13 ou 15 mini-hídricas foram construídas, são pequenas mesmo, com potências de cerca de 10, 15, 20 quilowatts, incluindo as mini-hídricas de Honda. São muitas mini-hídricas pequenas foram construídas em Manica que não consegui trazer aqui. Em relação ao caso específico da mini-hídrica de Honda, tenho a informação que essa mini-hídrica não funciona, ficou inoperacional há alguns anos e está sendo eletrificado o local através da rede nacional. Há informação, e se calhar os meus colegas da delegação de Manica podem me ajudar aqui. A informação que eu tenho é que a mini-hídrica de Honda, conhecemos sim, encontrava-se no operacional, não funcionava há algum tempo atrás e a EDM está a eletrificar o local. A outra questão que me coloca que será um novo orçamento ou não? Obviamente que sim, porque vai se lançar de novo o concurso. O empreiteiro estava ainda na fase de mobilização. Portanto, não há nenhuma estrutura ainda feita lá em Berua. Foi uma das causas que fez com que nós rescindíssemos o contrato, porque não víamos o progresso da obra. Tem lá o estaleiro, tem lá alguns acessos já feitos, essas coisas todas, mas a obra como tal nunca tinha sido, não se tem nada no terreno. Então, vai ter que se lançar o concurso de novo. Eu não sei se vai coincidir o mesmo orçamento do Soares da Costa, mas duvido, mas vai ser diferente o orçamento que vai, porque vai ser um novo concurso. Eu não sei se me fez perceber as tuas questões.
Muito obrigado. É que se eu levanto a questão do orçamento, é que na sua apresentação vem lá o custo da mini hídrica de onde? De onde não, de Beru. E a posterior avançou que houve lá um caso litigioso. Daí onde vem a questão, se há um caso litigioso, de certeza que como vão fazer de novo o concurso, de certeza que o orçamento não será o mesmo. Então, a questão era saber se o valor que o engenheiro pôs aí na sua apresentação é o anterior, na altura de Soares da Costa, ou é o projetado para o novo concurso.
Sim, a tua questão é pertinente. Na verdade, aqueles são os dados iniciais que nós tivemos com o primeiro empreiteiro, que é Soares da Costa. Só são os dados iniciais do primeiro concurso que fizemos com a Soares da Costa.
Roberto, este campo é interessante. Eu queria também continuar algumas coisas. Por exemplo, eu estou interessado em saber um pouco sobre a mini hídrica de Sembezeia. Porquê? Porque parece que está muito avançado já. Inclusive, tem 67 ligações de beneficiários feitas. Falaste das unidades de mini hídrica, construção civil, não sei o que. Seria possível elaborar um pouco sobre a componente de quem faz as ligações para os consumidores e não sei se te lembras, na apresentação passada o governo fazia estes projetos e depois lançava o concurso para serem geridos por investidores privados. E queria que elaborasses também um pouco qual é a previsão do FUNAI quando a obra está pronta, se já existe um plano.
Exatamente. Essa é uma questão também muito importante aqui. O FUNAI é uma entidade implementadora de projetos de energias renováveis, incluindo mini hídricas. O FUNAI faz a contratação de empreiteiros, faz a contratação de fiscais para a execução das obras. Neste momento não há nenhum instrumento legal que faz que estabelece os modelos de gestão das mini hídricas. Então, neste momento, o FUNAI é que faz a gestão direta. Ou seja, tem técnicos contratados pelo FUNAI que fazem essas atividades. Mas, no futuro, provavelmente, poderá haver instrumentos que permitem a gestão através de privados. Portanto, não há nenhum instrumento neste momento, mas está na perspectiva do FUNAI privatizar os projetos das mini hídricas, terceirar os projetos para a gestão de privados, ou também a partir do princípio do público-privado, por exemplo. Então, essas todas são as novas estratégias que poderá se estabelecer no futuro. Portanto, é o FUNAI, sim, que está a fazer a gestão direta, operação, manutenção e gestão, faz as ligações e tudo mais, mas pode também o setor privado, ou através de princípios de público-privado, fazer-se essa gestão de gestão e operação das mini. Portanto, não está vedado aqui a participação do setor privado. Só que, claro, os projetos têm que ser apetecíveis para a gestão através de privados. Existem projetos meramente sociais e o privado provavelmente pode não ter interesse na gestão desses projetos. Mas não está vedado, então, a participação de privados na gestão as mini hidrias. Obrigado.
Mr. Roberto, can I ask one question?
Yes.
Regarding your mini hydro project design, now, for example, you have a project called Berua, okay?
Yes.
And I think the capacity of Berua is around
2 megawatts.
yeah, 1.9. And so what is the design discharge? What I mean is, can 2 megawatt be generated, or 1.9 generated all 12 months, or some months it is lower than 1.9? What is the water
Yes.
availability or design?
Yes, I think dry season, I recognize that this power will not be possible to have.
Generate.
Yes, I think this 1.9 will be the maximum power. Yes.
Okay. In dry season, how much? 50% or 70% of capacity? How much?
More or less 70, 50%.
Okay,
No,
70.
70%.
70%. Okay, that's okay. Okay, thank you. And also, I noticed that, okay, for example, your two projects, Berua, which is 1.9, and
Yes.
Luasi, Luaisi, which is 4.79. So, and the cost is about for Luaisi, it is about how much is it? Cost is around 3.5 million.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yes.
now the cost is around 7,000 for per kilowatt cost, 7,400 something. And
Yes.
for because it is big size, larger, the cost is 5,650 per kilowatt.
Yes.
The reason I ask is, although like, if you compare with the cost of large hydro, this cost per kilowatt is high. But I think if you consider mini hydro, this cost is not so bad.
Yes.
And the reason I say this is, in last when we had on Wednesday, we had the very nice presentation discussion about tariff and mini grid. Okay, so
Yes.
I think your mini hydro project, compared to the tariff that they presented, is quite, I would say, competitive. I mean, of course, you have to do the detailed analysis. Financial, economic, and revenue generation, and all the cost. But
Yes.
it is not so bad. It's not so bad. So
Yes.
this is my observation. So do you agree?
Yes, I agree. But this cost, I would like to explain something that I didn't explain here. It's not included the network, the grid.
Oh, I see. Oh, okay.
It's only
Yeah.
It's only
Yeah.
the hydropower. I'm sorry.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And normally, like, yeah, you're right. You're right. So you have to
Yes.
the mini, because and also, of course, now this is a discussion. It's a policy decision. So it
Yes.
will be difficult to maybe for you and us to answer. But what is the is the government planning or organization planning for any grant to subsidize some capex cost of these mini hydro? Do you know?
No, it's only the government investment only here.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
not,
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
yes,
Thank you.
yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And of course, if I request other participants, colleagues to comment and ask. Maybe I also have, after we finish, I also prepared a very brief, I reviewed the portfolio document I found in the internet. So
Yes,
I have some, maybe I have some few slides I prepare. I will also
yes,
maybe present that later after we finish this discussion. So Mr.
yes, yes, yes.
Carlos, do you think we have any more questions?
Oh, let us check.
Okay.
Teríamos alguma pergunta? Mais alguma pergunta, colegas? Parece que não é o caso. I think we can proceed, Divas.
Yeah. So let me just share some slides. This will be just to add to Mr. Roberto's presentation, which is, I think, as I said, I did not understand everything, but I find it quite nice. So let me just share. Sorry. Share the. Just give me 1 minute, please. I don't know what happened. Okay. All right. Okay, you can see my screen.
Yes, Divas.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, today, I mean, maybe we have 10 minutes before we end the first part. Thank you, Mr. Roberto, for making this presentation on the project portfolio, FUNAI project portfolio. It was very useful. I just I had just prepared a few slides on this just to, so Mr. Roberto, this report I found in the internet. This is the same project portfolio report you referred to, right, in your presentation?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So in that one, I noticed that I think Mr. Roberto already presented that basically they have 31 projects they had listed, and some are under construction, some are with feasibility study, and some with pre-feasibility, and some with baseline. So, so this was that. And I noticed that I read the report because, I mean, maybe I may have missed something, and Mr. Roberto has already discussed this. I noticed that for the off-grid, the selection principles they used was, first they went to the local authorities for the needs assessment, and they carried out a baseline studies with potential connections, which is very important because if you see the tariff presentation on Wednesday, depending on the number of connections, of course, the demand, the tariff really changed, not reduced. If you have more connections, a bit larger mini grid. So, and also the potential economic activities, that in the tariff presentation, Mr. Nico presented about rural industrialization. So, and also, if you remember in my sessions, I also mentioned that when you have new mini hydro or solar or other access to electricity, maybe the first 3 years it will take time for people to start their rural small industries, agro industry or fishery or cold storage. So, but after 3 years, the potential economic activities will increase. So it will support rural industrialization, so for the rural economy. So which is very good that they have thing, in my opinion. And of course, based on this potential connection, potential economic activities, they have done the energy demand, which is correct. And also after that, okay, you know, this is the demand. Then after that, what is the appropriate technology? You know that. So it is it mini hydro? Is it solar? Is it biomass? Because depending on the resources available, okay. Because of course, for mini hydro, you have topography, and you have to have the water available. Okay. So, but solar is available everywhere. Biomass also, bioenergy, you need Mr. Pat and Paul, they have already discussed. So appropriate technology, you have to justify the technology. Is mini hydro the right option to meet this energy demand? And of course, the cost is very important. So that's why, so bigger the size of the mini hydro or hydro, the cost, because of economy of scale, cost increases. So there is less investment. But sometimes very isolated off-grid locations, the cost can be high, especially if the demand is not high. And also, I noticed that they prioritized based on the least cost approach, which is, I mean, the right thing to do. So basically, they looked at what is the energy resources available. As I mentioned, what is the potential for hydropower, for example, what is the population density, because this will lead to the potential connections. And also, I mean, how far is it from the grid? Because sometimes if it is near from the national grid, there might be plan to extend the grid, and if the demand is good. And also, they looked at the intervention impact, they call it, which is what will be the impact of this energy access, electricity access. So I thought this was a very good approach. Sorry, you know what happened? Can you, sorry, somebody has, okay. Can you see my screen? Maybe I think my screen was lost.
No, it is lost actually.
Okay, I'm just bringing it back now, so it should be okay now. I think you can see it now, right? Yeah.
It's coming. Yeah, we can see it.
So, and then I looked at, they said that, so obviously, so because I wanted to cover today, how do you prioritize these projects, okay? These are very good criteria, but of course, the government at the national level, provincial level, also has their policy, you know, like some province, it may be far from the national grid, or it may be a little bit, some province, some areas are getting connections from neighboring countries, and they want to, for energy security, they want to replace that, or there is some potential tourism attraction, or some areas are little bit disadvantaged areas. So they want to, I think these priorities, which province, which area to concentrate is also very important. And of course, as Mr. Roberto also mentioned, now FUNAI has the policy of encouraging private sector participation. So the investors' interest to also be important. And of course, access to target groups. Maybe you want to target, like, as I said, if there's a tourism sector or some disadvantaged population, you want to province which needs a little bit support, you may want to target these. So personally, I mean, although hydropower is a technology for electricity generation, but also it has to be matched with the socioeconomic policies and aspirations, you know, of the country. So I think this was the general philosophy, and the approach is good. And I also saw this, I'm taking this from this report, and I'm happy to see that, of course, as Mr. Roberto mentioned, I think FUNAI is considering the private sector as a partner, you know, and I think Mr. Colleagues from CTA wanted to know And also now the other stakeholder is EDM. Okay? EDM is basically grid, but I also understand there is an off-grid section in EDM. So it's an utility, but FUNAI is more, and has their own mandate. So based on this, the CapEx cost and the OpEx are there, then you provide. So this was just, I'm just sharing this thing. And also now, I just collected the list of, I think there were some baseline projects, 5 projects with what you call pre-feasibility study, 2 projects with 1 project feasibility study, and 1 project and 2 projects in the Atlas, which are now under execution. And basically, from this thing, they were focused on some provinces. I think it was given that there were 5 provinces, but I just put these projects in the portfolio in the map of Mozambique. And if you noticed, of course, you see this, the background map is the elevation map, okay? So obviously for mini hydro, you have to have some head, elevation difference. So, and also there are a number of projects in the Zambezi river basin, part of Mozambique, all these red dots. The blue ones are, I think, the 2 projects that the Lua, forgive my pronunciation, Luahi and Berua are these blue projects. And the other, the dark black one, is the projects with pre-feasibility. And I also, the reason I asked Mr. Roberto about what is the water availability and the design capacity, because if you see, this is the flow, rainfall and differences. No, so you have now, as Mr. Carlos was, Professor Carlos was mentioning, that you have heavy rain in the last 2 days or today in Maputo, but you are in the rainy season. January, February is the rainy season. So the river must be high here, but during the dry season, June, July, August, September, the river flow will be less. So what is that level of design? So in the evaluation, you have to consider. And also, okay, this area is the area with higher elevations, the darker gray area, but in terms of precipitation, you get more precipitation on this side according to the rainfall data. So we have to basically, when you do the studies, these are also very important factors. So this was the list I got, and as I mentioned, the per capita cost of these 2 projects in that thing was, but this is just the mini hydro, 5,600 and 7,400. And I noticed that there was 1 project, a big one, I think, that Mr. Roberto presented, and which was, I think, anyway, so the cost is much less. But you see, when it is a small projects, the cost of this one in the feasibility study is quite high. But I'm not sure, maybe this cost also includes the mini grid, but I'm not sure. So this is a little bit.
Yes, it includes.
Yeah, this one includes the mini
grid. It includes the mini grid.
So this one probably does not include the distribution network. So this is something, now it's a policy regime that has to be decided. So, but I just wanted to present you that. So based on that, I think we are running a little bit 1 hour. Maybe we can break now, but based on Mr. Roberto's presentation and some slides, I just random thing. What do you think should be the criteria for selection of these, prioritizing this mini hydro? You have 31 more number. So because this is also important. So, but maybe we can just break for 10 minutes, then you can think about it. Then when you come back, we can just have maybe spend a few minutes on this criteria. Is the criteria that was given is good enough? Good, I think it's good. But do you think there should be other criteria for prioritization? Of course, you have to look at the, when you do the real criteria, this is basically more economic criteria. So you have to look at the social and environmental impacts also. Okay? And also I noticed that the FUNAI document also consider gender. So they want to also improve the lives of women and children, you know, with this energy access. So they have one small section on how it helps gender equality also. So let us maybe break for 10 minutes, then we can just meet after 10 minutes and have a few minutes of discussion on this criteria for prioritization. Yeah, just now a short, maybe 2 or 3 minutes. Can we sort of just quickly, if anybody has any suggestion, comments on what should be the key criteria? You have many mini hydro projects that have been identified, studied. So what should be the criteria to prioritize them in the case of Mozambique? Some criteria I already summarized from the FUNAI report, but do you think there are other criteria that you should consider? Anyone, please? Well, if I mean, you don't have any specific, it's all right. We can move on. But I would say, like, I mean, the technical due diligence, no, like, is important. So I will be covering that a little later, and also the social environmental impacts located in sort of sensitive, important watersheds. Then you have to also make sure that.
Divas, sorry to interrupt.
Yes, please.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yes, please.
Is my screen comes with a block of black spot on the corner? Is that okay?
Okay,
black,
now it's okay.
Thing. No, it still has a. Now it's okay. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. Okay, so if there is no any comment right now, we'll just move on. Mr. Kamal, did you have any suggestion for the criteria to use for prioritization?
But yeah, I think cost could be one.
Yes.
Yeah, because if you compare 5, 6 units, you may see that some have cost advantages. You know.
That's correct.
Then there is the social importance of the project.
Yes.
Sometimes the environmental issues are not addressed properly also. So
yes.
To start with, I would say those 3.
Yeah, no, I fully agree with you. I think fully agree with you. Yeah, and the social importance is also very important, and of course the environmental issue should be. And at the end of the day, it's the cost, because I mean, if it's very expensive, you cannot. It's not successful, and people are not able to afford. That's correct. Yeah, thank you. Let me just move on. Now, the other thing I wanted to, especially maybe I request our EDM colleagues, if possible, I just wanted to make a short, like discussion on Okay, now we are talking about mini hydro, and this is the focus of our capacity building work. But also, Mozambique is now planning some relatively large hydro, and they have developed a national master plan. I think it was in 2018, according to the review I did. And so this is in 2018, EDM, the Ministry of Mineral Resources and Energy, they prepared the integrated master plan for the Mozambique power system development. So I just reviewed very quickly, and if you see, I just wanted, this is just, I thought I should, when you talk about mini grids, isolated system, that is our focus. But if you talk about hydropower development, I just wanted to spend few slides now. And if we'll discuss separately, if colleagues from EDM could maybe make a short presentation in the next session, next week, Friday, on this master plan and on the national grid power system development and their mini hydro plan. So I will discuss with Dr. Carlos, and maybe we'll talk to our colleagues from EDM. But what I wanted to show here is, okay, you have, this is from this thing, you have 24 hours in a day, and of course, and 12 months. But now this is the load curve of Mozambique. So your maximum peak is in the evening and during the daytime, and at night, after 10, 12 o'clock, sort of after 8 o'clock, your load decreases. This is the overall, okay? And now you have, you are meeting gas powered is fired plants are meeting the peak load, but also the other loads of peak. And you also have coal fired, which is meeting this thing. And you have hydropower here. So at the moment, gas and coal is the majority, and this is the solar power during like starts from 9 o'clock to 5, 6 o'clock. So this is the sort of the economic sort of dispatch, what they call it, okay? And this is the existing power generation from hydropower. According to this report, you have the Kohora Bassa, Chikamba, Mazibi, Kuruman Hydro, and Kuamba and Lisinga. But I think the Kohora Bassa, I mean, the majority of the flow is exported to neighboring countries. So this is by 2042, they have a master plan. This is how they see that the power system will expand. So and this is the different hydropower under construction or completed feasibility. I think they have some extension, second thing of Kohora Bassa. This is the Kohora Bassa description. Different generating capacity, and I think this is the project that is now under I don't know Opanda, and they have this. So these are projects with reservoir storage projects, and probably this is under, I don't know if it started, but this is a project under construction or something, and according to the schedule, it is supposed to be completed by 2024. But also this is a reservoir in the probably in the Zambezi River Basin. Okay? So it is 1,500 megawatts. It's a relatively large thing, and it's basically used for base load, it says. Okay, so I just wanted to sort of give you an idea of the overall master plan, and also, as I mentioned, the load varies from weekday on a Saturday and a Sunday. You know? So this is 2016, and as I said, normally you have this solar thing. This is the load curve, and solar is in the afternoon. So you need the other sources of electricity like hydro and even gas fired. So this is the general, the EDM plan, and this is the, I think you have the plan up to 28, and in the southern system, this is what they are planning. They are planning in the central and northern system, they are planning one hydro, and of course solar and other are ongoing, gas, coal, and this is the total overall, I think, in the integrated system, 2029 to 43. So they have a number of hydro projects that are 850 that are planned, and these are the gas, coal. So what and 330 of solar and of course wind. So this is just to give you a picture of how this will vary. And now by 20, I think they want to do a second phase of Kora Bassa here. And I think by 2029, they want to get the fund, this hydro big one. Sorry, somebody shared. Can somebody share? Carlos, yeah, okay. Can you see my screen now? Monitor? Because there was some disturbance from someone.
Yeah, we can see the screen now.
Okay, thank you. So this is just to give you an idea of how Mozambique is planning their generation development. So, and one thing I just want to mention, maybe we'll discuss that development of mini hydro, mini grids, and the national power system is slightly different. So I just wanted to bring that. So now, like just with that background, I mean, I just wanted to get your views based on the discussions we have had till now. What do you see the role of hydropower in meeting the national electricity demand? And this one I'm talking about grid connected. Okay? And the second question is, what is the difference between grid connected powers? If you are developing a hydropower for grid connection, and if you are developing a mini hydropower for a mini or a grid or an isolated system, do you have some? Do you have any comments on this? Anyone, please? Carlos, was my question clear?
I think so. I think it was clear.
I mean, of course.
I can start.
Yes, please.
Discussing this. I think it's two key questions. Mini grids can be a good source if you know that the river system you are using does not fluctuate very much and does not depend very much on upstream consumption. Okay. Aggravating to that, we have the phenomena of climate change, which shows for many parts of the country to be drier and drier. Now, it becomes a risk if the upstream conditions change dramatically. And that is a big risk for mini hydros and any hydros for what I know. I don't know how long it takes from pre-feasibility, feasibility, then the social studies, environmental studies, finance. But I think we discussed with you, Divas, and you suggested that you can go as short as 3 years. And in my view, it will take in Mozambique perhaps up to 5 years to get it done. And that is a big handicap for the hydro projects. It's how long it takes to get to fruition. For the smaller ones, apparently it looks that they become more and more expensive the smaller they are. But maybe, Divas, you can tell us a little bit about scale. If there is any savings to go small scale, perhaps it's a good idea for small villages, you know, that they run the unit themselves. So that is my contribution.
Thank you so much. I think, I mean, your contribution has always been very good and interesting. And what you just mentioned is exactly what I would summarize. Regarding the study or the preparation period for hydro projects, as you mentioned, doing the study, doing the environmental, social approvals, you are right. Actually, for developing countries, including my country, Nepal, I mean, it is not so easy. And you said it takes 5 years in the case of Mozambique. I think this is one big constraint for hydropower. And as you know, I mean, especially for large hydropower and even for small, as you know, hydropower has, I mean, it is impacted by environmental degradation. Also, hydropower has impacts on the environment. So it's both ways. Environment impacts hydropower, impacts environment. So it is basically a trade-off. You know, what is the balance between hydropower and environment? Now with climate change, I mean the changes in river and flows and extreme. I mean, in my country, more than the river flows, the extreme floods and droughts are more critical, and also sediment. I would assume I admit that I have not really analyzed the hydrological data of Mozambique so much. I have looked at some, but not in very detail. So climate change impact on the hydrology and how it impacts risk is also very critical. And regarding the cost, and you are very right, you can see that the cost is because of economy of scale. Small, mini and micro hydro are expensive. And we saw that with grid connection and the project that feasibility study that was done by is coming to be, including the cost for distribution for a 450 kilowatt project, it's coming to be 15,400 something per kilowatt. Just the generation cost is around 7,000 for 480 kilowatt, and for 1.9, just the construction cost of hydro, the capital cost, capex, is 5,600. So the cost is this. These are relatively high cost, especially because mini hydros, and we saw in the Wednesday presentation also, depending on the load, the number of connections, the industrial use, the cost can really go down. So this is very critical. And also, I'm not an expert on mini grid tariff and cost economics so much, but I mean the tariff for mini grids, you know, coming from 30, 40, more, up to 80 US dollar cents per kilowatt is very high, you know, because I think the diesel generator cost would be around 30 plus minus. Please check, but you can have a diesel generator for maybe 30 US dollar cents per kilowatt hour. So if your mini grid hydro or solar is more expensive than that, then it has to be considered. So, but I think I'm not sure about the tariff in the national grid, but I would assume that the tariff what is the tariff in Mozambique for EDM, like for a household? Mr. Carlos? Or?
Around 7 to 8 meticais per kilowatt hour.
Yeah, so that will be how much in US cents?
Around 10 cents, I would say.
Yeah, 10 cents. Yeah. So that is something the average sort of in my country also, and in most. I mean, of course, in other countries, more developed countries, it's cheaper. But I think 10 cents, 8 to 10 cents for grid connection is. I mean, it might be expensive, but it's reasonable now. But compared to that, if you are saying a mini grid will cost you 80 cents, US cents per kilowatt, that's quite a thing. But having said that, access to electricity is, and this includes subsidized capex, and I don't know about operations. So the government is already subsidizing, and with the subsidy, if the cost tariff is so high, so we have to find ways. Of course, the cost of solar photovoltaic modules are really coming down, and grid connection. So I think Paul has covered that quite well in this in this training thing. But when it comes to mini hydro, also I think the costs that are here are a little bit higher than the rest of the world. And in Asia, we have done quite well in that sense. Even in Nepal, the mini hydro, in Pakistan and Afghanistan, I know the mini hydro costs also, they are having local manufacturers and other innovative cost reduction methods. So I don't think it's so high compared to that. So that is very important. But another thing you should remember is hydropower is part of a water system. So the value of water is also there. So how do you do the valuation is also very important. And having said that, I fully agree with your comments about the cost, the environmental impacts, the time it takes, and the hydrological variation. That's correct, yes. Yeah, anyone else, if you want to add something to what we discussed? If not, it's all right, because I think we today we had. I will move on today because I think we've had quite a good discussion on the project portfolio and how mini grids development is should be made, prioritization. But I just wanted to present these few slides to give you some idea about the grid system. No? Like, I think this is also it's also important. Okay. Now, in the second part that I had planned today was actually we're a little bit running out of time, but anyway, I try to see what I can cover. The second part was, okay, till now we did, this is the 10, I mean, we had more than 10 sessions, lectures, but I think full sessions, this is the 10th one with 3 hour and 2 hour. And there was some introductory session before. So now I covered in the last 9 sessions, basically, the main 9 key sessions. So when you are doing technical due diligence, okay, now you have the feasibility study reports. So you want to now look at these, if the studies are technically sound, because the cost will depend on the technical soundness and the success of that. So this was just my summary of what I covered in the sessions up to now before this. Of course, the first one is I just categorized into 5 headings. The first one is the data available and analysis. Okay, so I covered that in the first Hydro 01A and Hydro 1B. And so when I talk about data available, I mean, there are 3 key types of data. One is the hydrological data, okay? And I have seen some hydrological data for Mozambique that I got from the internet, but I think there is room for improvement. So I think the hydrological modeling, the river stream flow discharge monitoring needs some improvement. I'm not very familiar of the institutional agency responsible for hydrological services, but I'm sure you have this, and maybe I'm wrong, but the hydrology data is very important, because if you don't have the river data correct, then your project can be at risk. Then the other thing is the topographical data, because the topographical maps that you have now available is the best is in 1 in 250,000 scale map, topographical maps with contours. This is a little low resolution. So you have to have, even for planning deck study purpose for a hydropower, I think you need at least 1 in 20,000, or in the worst case, 50,000, just for planning purpose. But when you are doing the site selection, a detailed feasibility study, then you have to do a topographical survey yourself with theodolites. Nowadays, you have, you can use even, LiDAR mapping, and you can use drones to develop these, and you have GPS that can be used also. So the topographical survey data and the analysis is very important for the site selection as well as the design. So I covered that in some ways in Hydro 05 part A and B. And demand assessment is also very important. I covered that in the preliminary, I think 05 part A also, I forgot to mention here. And in this one, as was done by FUNAI also, you have to now identify the population that it can serve, what is the number of connections, what is the potential demand, what are the commercial and rural industrial demand thing. In the national grid, the demand assessment will be for large industries, for tourist services, and for offices, hotels, and other things. But for mini hydro and small isolated hydro, it will be rural industries, small scale mining work, carpentry, furniture, ice plant, agro processing plant, and other things. So you have to make sure that the data available and analysis is properly done, of course. And the second one is, once you have this data, I just want to, when you have a report or a project preparation, then the data is there, but based on the data, a proper option assessment design of hydraulic structures and civil works. I covered that in 2 phases. I gave the introduction in the session on Hydro 02, and on Hydro 06, I went into more detail about how you design the weir, how to design the intake, how to design the canal, how to design the gravel traps, how to design the sediment handling structures, how to design the forebay, the penstock was there. So you have to make sure that the layout, the configuration, and the design is done properly to be able to arrive at a reliable cost estimate. Okay? And then the hydroelectrical equipment, the turbine selection, has it been done well? The powerhouse generators and other electrical equipment. So we covered that in 2 sessions. Hydro 3 was more introductory. Hydro 7 was more detailed. Then finally, we have to make sure, based on this option assessment, based on this data, based on the structures, is the alignment, the site selection done properly? Okay, that is already done. Then this is the technical part. Then based on the technical part, we have to make sure that the social and environmental impact safeguards are done correctly. And I covered that in two parts, in Hydro 04 and Hydro 08, Part A and Part A. So this was including climate change risks, as we mentioned. Then, based on these feasibility level design, structure, dimensions, we have to get the cost and benefit analysis. The financial analysis was covered separately by Mr. Bhatt, the methodology, everything. But as a hydropower feasibility study work, we have to find the cost based on this design, because the cost will vary according to the size, the dimension, and the location of these structures and the equipment. Then the benefit analysis will depend on the demand. And over here, in the benefit analysis, the tariff regime is very important. So it is something, what I call an exogenous. You don't define the tariff, okay? But of course, tariff, as was covered in Wednesday session, is decided based on recovery of the cost, okay? And the tariff, so we have to do a balance between the tariff, the capex, the opex, and some margin of rate of return on the investment are there, minus the subsidy and the grants thing. So based on the tariff, in the financial analysis, we do the benefit analysis. So based on the cost and benefit, then you do the financial analysis and get the rate of returns, the total present value of the net benefits, and the levelized cost of electricity generation. Then we have to make sure the feasibility study report is will be done, has to be prepared properly. And I covered this at in Hydro 09 lecture session. So when you are doing the key technical due diligence, you have to make sure that this data available, option design, the social cost, the feasibility report are properly prepared. So, and this was basically covered. So based on the technical components, I'm just referring to my presentation of 01A. As I mentioned, the headworks, the powerhouse generating, transmission, distributed, end use, all these design aspects has to be at the feasibility study level, which was covered in the presentations that I made earlier. The data collection also, I'm just referring to the thing. So we have to look at the possible layout from various things. What should be the installed capacity? Like, okay, now this depends on two ways. One, depends on the demand and also the water availability. What should be the design discharge? I'll talk about it later. The head, the market extension of grid connection. Later on, if there is a grid connection, how it will be managed. So these are other aspects of data collection that needs to be done. The site selection also was covered here. So, I mean, the reports that you are evaluating, the portfolio, you have to make sure the flow and head is reliably estimated, and that the site alignment is done correctly. Okay? So regarding the design, so data analysis, as I mentioned, hydrology, site content, demand assessment option is there. And also nowadays, as we should also try to look at some innovation, because now it's getting very competitive. The cost of other renewable sources are reducing. So we should make sure that we also find innovative solutions to our design. Okay? And now I just wanted to sort of just recap the flow duration curve that we have to, the flow variation that we have to address. Okay, and like I said, I mean, in the presentation I made earlier, this is the variation of the flow. So you can design a project with 40% reliable flow, which will be 10 cubic meter per second. Okay? But what will happen if you design for Q40 is you will get full install capacity only 40% of the time. So other time you will get less. This one will be, the energy generation will be less than the capacity. So now you have to decide design discharge. Okay, so if it is mini hydro grid with no sources of electricity, then this is in this range. You have to design for a lower discharge, but which are more reliable. But if you are doing it with other hybrid system with hydro and some other sources of electricity, you can design it here in this range. Okay? So this is the selection of the design discharge is a good example of a technical due diligence. Similarly, the flood, okay, we have to make sure that the data we use for the flood analysis is good, and that we estimate the design flood correctly. So this is also a very important thing. And as I mentioned earlier, okay, this is the flow duration curve. Okay, and I give you an example in this slide that suppose you have a 20-meter head of head difference between the forebay and the powerhouse. Now, if you design this project for 40% based on 40% dependable flow, you get a little bit more than 1.5 megawatt of install capacity. If you design for 60% flow, you get less than 1,000 kilowatt. Now, if you design for 90% of dependable flow, you will get less than 500 kilowatt. So this red line, this yellow line, and this white line will show the energy variation of this from this plant. So this is very important consideration. So what is the optimal design capacity will depend on various factors. One of them is the balance between supply and demand. So this one will be an important part of a project due diligence. So I think we don't have, I was planning to, maybe next class I may go over it, but I was planning to do one short exercise on calculating the flow duration and power duration. But at the moment, I would just limit to this explanation of this one. So this figure is very important for the hydropower project design. And based on that, what happens is this now, if like you see, if you design your project for Q90, okay, this is now the install capacity, as I mentioned earlier, is less than 500 kilowatt. If you design this project for install capacity, sorry. If you design the project, sorry, my computer is getting a little bit slow for some reason. Okay. Can you see my slide? Yeah. Yeah. So if you can design for less than 500, less than 1,000, or more than 1.5 also. But if you design, yeah, if you design for Q90 for less than 500, you get the blue line is the energy generation in every month, the same in 12 months. Okay? But if you design for Q60 less than 1,000 kilowatt, the energy generation will increase, but during the dry season of July, August, September, October, you have almost 50% of the energy you have in this period. And then if you design for Q40, you will get a peak in February, March. The capacity is less than 1.6 megawatt or something, but the capacity and the energy drastically reduces in these months. So this optimization of the capacity is an important part of the technical due diligence of any project. Okay? So now I want to I actually come to an end of today's sessions, but before we close, I want to just get your views on what are the technical areas or revisions of what was presented related to mini hydro project. Now we have 2 more sessions next week, Friday, and actually last week we will have a combined session. And I think we received some questions from you on you want to cover in the combined session. So I will cover that in the last session or maybe a little bit next session. But is there any particular area which, I mean, I have some plans to do it, but is there any particular area where you want to review, like any design of civil works, design of any structure, or the hydrological and demand assessment, or the energy generation calculation, or on cost benefit analysis, or related to mini hydro, or social and environmental impacts? So I just wanted you to get your quick thoughts on this area. Yeah, anyone? Is there anything that you want me to, because we are now, yes, please.
Yes, Mr. Bach. I would like to review the design of civil works using the Excel sheet that you have sent to us.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Civil and electromechanical works, civil and design.
Okay. No, thank you so much. I think this is, so the Excel sheets that I shared. So what I request you and everybody is, before the next class on 20, I will review that. I will think, please go practice that yourself also. And then if you have any specific questions on anything, let me know. Otherwise, I will go over this section. Thank you so much. I'll do that on Friday. Yeah. And another thing is...
hello, good morning.
Yes, please.
Yes, may I ask you, please, to talk a little bit about the equipment suppliers as well, in order you know what is available in terms of the different sides of the world, in terms of the suppliers of the mechanical equipment, hydromechanical equipment. Is it possible to talk about?
Yeah. Actually, in this one, I will admit that I will provide what is the general trend and available, but it is very also, especially for mini hydro, the local capacity, like I can give you some examples of my experience in Asia of what each country follow for the equipment supply. But for Africa and Mozambique, there might be small differences, but I will try to see, I will try to do, okay? I try to do. This is very important, and I'll try to do. But I may not be, but I'll try, let's see, I'll try what I can do. But I can give you some examples of Asia. I don't have so much, honestly, about Africa, but I have some, let me check about Africa also. Thank you so much, and Mozambique, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much.
No, both of these are very, I'm very glad that you asked me these questions, because these are both, at the end of the day, these are the two, and among others, very important parts of our capacity building exercise. Thank you. Anything else, please? And also, like, send me an email if later on, if you have any additional thing. But I will try to focus in these two parts in the next class, and apart from something that I think I had planned for, but that should be short. So I'll do this next class. Yeah. And now we are almost 11 o'clock. So Carlos, do you think there is anything else we need to discuss? Or maybe we could close for the day today. And in the next class, I will talk about these two things. Thank you so much.